This video is brought to you by Squarespace. I have been invited to judge Reddit's biannual terrain competition, so in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entries, judge each piece, and then reveal my vote for the winner. This competition was put together by Steve Famine, friend of the channel and moderator on r/terrain building, one of the biggest online communities for crafting. And since I want to see this hobby grow, he and I are putting up money for the prize pool, and there's over $500 of prizes on the line. We have some big exciting plans to make this competition even bigger and better with some amazing prizes in the future, so stay tuned until the end of the video to find out how. Let's get into the competition itself. The theme for this competition this time around is hidden places. In the description box below, I'll link to the full set of rules and guidelines for the competition. The entries are split into two categories, open and raw, and I really like this distinction. Open allows for anything, 3D printing, model kits, as long as it isn't more than 50% of the whole build, while raw is for more traditional scratch building methods using foam, cardstock, putty, and that sort of thing. 3D printing is getting bigger in the hobby, so it's great that it has a place here, but it's also nice that scratch builders have their own category as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at the entries in the raw category. I'll start by reading the description provided by the crafters themselves, and then go into my analysis. Entry 1. The Hidden Lab by Wolf Doom. The South Philadelphia Art Museum was once a shining beacon in the art community, featuring both local artists and big names known the world over. However, it's been years since it's closed its heavy doors, and there's no one to collect the admission ticket from the one visitor it still has. A lone figure approaches the back door and presses their hand to the keyless entry and stares into the retina scanner above the door. A moment passes and the doors silently slide open. The figure throws a furtive glance over their shoulder and disappears through the door. Inside, some art still hangs on the walls, but most of it was removed or is leaning against the walls in dusty heaps to make room for the doctor's lab equipment. They approach the terminal and enter in a few key commands, bringing the ring gate in front of them to life. With a final look at their life's work, they step through the ring gate. This board was made with the intention of playing Marvel Crisis Protocol, but the scale works for 28mm as well. Because MCP uses a lot of throwable terrain, I did my best to make as much of the terrain removable. So all of the windows, front doors, and back doors can all be removed, both for access into the building as well as doing some damage. The same goes for all of the crates, covered up artwork, and lab equipment, because what better way to daze Spider-Man by having the Green Goblin hurl a giant door or computer terminal at them. Wow, starting with a bang. There are so many cool techniques and details on display here, and I'm really impressed. The first thing that strikes me is that the overall shape of this building, combined with these ruined banners, communicates to me that this is an abandoned museum really quickly. One of the underrated skills that I think is really cool to see in a crafter is the ability to use visual shorthand, which is to say to identify key elements that make something look like what it's supposed to be. Without these banners, this could be a courthouse or a city hall, but with these raggedy banners, it's immediately saying to me abandoned museum. So points for that right away. Tremendous details as well, both crafted and painted. The garbage bags, the posters, the air conditioner, which appear to be made from cardstock, the rust stains, the weathering, the verdigris on the roof coping, even the drab Department of Public Works green paint that has been used in the boarded up pieces, they all combine to really sell the story. And that's just the outside. Inside, they've done a wonderful marble tile effect, made a bunch of little pieces of art, and even included little details like the dark outline of where the paintings used to hang on the wall, which I love. There's a wonderful attention to detail at work here, and that just makes this a pleasure to look at. The sheets of paper on the computer terminal here, this type of stuff, it's just brilliant. Now in terms of criticisms, there are a few areas that I can nitpick. Ideally, I don't want to be able to tell what materials or techniques were used that will give away the miniature scale. So in this case, I notice a few small things like the texture of the XPS foam here, the overlapping cut of the stonework here, but these are very, very minor things. Another thing that hurts the realism a little bit is that the interior is just one large open area. There's no bathroom or any of the other things a museum would need to function as a museum. But obviously these are trade-offs that need to be made to get a whole building onto the tabletop with a playable interior. So I'm not counting it as much of a point off, if at all. So as a secret hideout, it's right in line with the Hidden Places theme, so full marks for that. Wonderful piece. Great start to the competition. Entry 2. A Hidden Place by Quadrante Essigrim. So this one doesn't seem to have an associated description, which is fine. It's a nicely weathered little outhouse. Now there's some really clear things to like about this. The wood weathering is some of the best I've seen. It's a very realistic blend of grays and greens that looks tremendous. Now in terms of realism, the roof appears to be made from a corrugated cardboard painted like corrugated metal, which is nicely dented and weathered, and I like that. Nice looking natural grass tufts, I do feel like the door is not at the same standard as the rest of the piece, which is a shame because your eye is drawn right to it. I would have liked to see maybe some nail holes or some more texture or something. As it is right now, it looks like it's a piece of card cut into a nice pattern with a bit of thicker card for the handles and hinges. I'm also not sure that an outhouse that isn't placed in a scene is totally in line with the theme of hidden places, so I can't give full points for that, but overall it's some really nice techniques at work here and it's a lovely little piece. Entry 3, The Rock by Corinthio. High in the mountains, you'll find yourself and your caravan fleeing for your life from the fearsome rock. Those of you who make it take refuge in a crevice. It becomes clear this crevice was once a dungeon or escape tunnel. You salvage wood and get a fire going for warmth. Hopefully the rock leaves or help comes soon. Days pass and you hear fighting. Did the town send adventurers to save you, or is it something worse, following your scent? So this one's a really fun concept. Unfortunately, it doesn't have many pictures of the finished product, which makes it a bit hard to examine closely, but it looks like they were able to get a nice balance between a realistic rock texture and a playable terraced surface, which is always a concern when you're making a terrain. There appears to be some nice color variation on the rock. I also really like how you get a peek of light from the hidden area through the crack. This definitely nails the hidden places theme. So I really enjoy pieces that have a cross section as well. I made a waterfall piece like this years ago and I really like this choice. So inside it looks like maybe some Hearst Arts molds were used through the stonework or something. Overall, very nice piece. Now before we move on to the rest of the entries, let's take a quick moment to look at today's sponsor, Squarespace. Using Squarespace's tools, I've just started building a website that will be a hub for showcasing my work, linking to products I use, and selling my channel merch such as the new t-shirt designs that I've just launched. And so far the experience has been great. There are a bunch of stylish templates that are optimized for whatever device your audience is using, and it's really intuitive to customize it and add the features that you want. I've just added a page where you can sign up to receive email notifications about future terrain competitions. So head to squarespace.com/ericshobbyworkshop to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code ericshobbyworkshop. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Entry 4, Outer Island. Welcome to Outer Island, the last island in a mysterious archipelago. A square-shaped rocky outcrop jutting out of the ocean, the only obvious point of entry is a rickety dock. You and your team have heard tales of this place. The islands are naturally rich with deposits of gold, silver, and jewels. Legend has it the ancestors of the locals who inhabit this chain of islands grew weary of attacks upon their homes from outsiders searching for valuables. All the treasures were gathered and deposited on Outer Island, seemingly ripe for the taking. But the locals had some tricks up their sleeves to hinder the would-be thieves. The island essentially consists of a single stone structure filled with the islanders' treasure. It has 3 large stone dials on it that need to be turned in order to open it. It does lock and open in real life through the use of inner dials and pegs. In order to open the structure, the adventurers need to travel down each path on the island. At the end of each path, they will find a stone statue with a single rune on it. By using the right rune on the right dial, the structure will open. Each path is guarded by hidden locals who have booby-trapped the paths. The locals have elected skilled guards to live on Outer Island and to protect the treasure from the outsiders. So this is a really fun entry, absolutely jam-packed with details. I like all the little items like the nests, the food traps, the little creatures, and I also really like the concept of having a working, functional locking box as part of the terrain. That sounds like a really fun and cool thing. There's some really awesome realistic ground cover, but obviously the shape of the island itself and I think the boundaries with the sea are not the most realistic, and that's part of the compromise of keeping the footprint down to make an entire island. This looks like a really fun piece to lay down for some RPG players with lots of details for them to find and enjoy, so well done. Entry 5, The Sacrificial Cavern. Ancient records speak of a tribe of wizards who settled near a volcano on the outskirts of Felstad. The land near the volcano was filled with unusual plants, but the volcano's frequent eruptions prevented settlements until the wizards discovered that sacrifices of live cattle appeased the mountain. Since the blizzard began, however, no sacrifices have been made, and now that the thaw has finally come, the volcano has become active once more. The door closed without a sound, leaving the party in complete darkness. One lit a torch, casting an eerie glow around the room. They stood on a well-kept platform. Well kept except for the missing chunk of wood and the suspicious charred wood. Compared to the frozen wasteland outside, the warm, moist cavern air felt more like the gaping maw of a dragon than a safe shelter. So this is a fun entry. It can be difficult to get the impression of an underground space, and I think they've captured that nicely. My first impression was actually that it kind of reminds me of some of the levels from GoldenEye for Nintendo 64, which is definitely a cool thing. It looks like these stalactites and stalagmites in the floor tiles might be modular, so you could reuse this for different layouts. And this comes back to the realism versus playability trade-off that we talked about before. This would definitely be a fun piece to play on. Now in terms of criticisms, I would have liked to see maybe a bit more texture and a bit of hiding of some of the transitions between the foam layers a bit better, because that always takes a bit of the immersion away. But this is a fun piece that captures the underground environment in quite a cool way, so well done. That brings us to the end of the raw category. So my vote for the raw category is going to go to The Hidden Lab by Wolfdoom. The attention to detail, the concept, everything I got into before makes that my choice. But well done everybody. Let's move on into the open category. Entry 1, The Ruined Chapel Hideout by OK Hobby Time. I had a lot of fun creating this submission and captured the making of this terrain piece in my latest YouTube video. The Ruined Chapel was created for my RPGs and tabletop war games. I plan on running this terrain piece as a hideout to a gang of fanatics. The hidden passage in the altar leads to a secret basement where the story continues. The materials used were foamular XPS insulation with the addition of 3D printed bits, finished with folk art craft paint, Liquitex inks, and woodland scenics foliage. So this is a really fun piece with a lot of cool details. The hidden places aspect is reflected in the fact that it is a secret hideout, as well as this trapdoor with a carpet on it that leads to another secret sanctum. The architectural detail, though, is the real triumph here. Sometimes it seems like ruins are easier to do than finished buildings, but ruins often reveal the method of construction used to build something, and that's a whole other level of detail. So in this build, they've chosen to make all the studs, joists, and beams that make up the construction of this piece, and then clad the walls with individual siding planks, which gives this a wonderful light effect inside and adds a lot of really cool detail. Now in terms of criticisms, there is a bit of an unfinished feeling to it. The roof is made from the same loose planks as the rest of the structure. Some shingles maybe would have been really nice to see. Tarred planks are a form of roofing, but it doesn't look like this. This chapel looks like it was just kind of abandoned midway through construction, which is fine because that's possible. But it would have been an opportunity to break up some of this wood with other colors and textures, but that's a small thing. Overall, really lovely piece, well done. The Descent into Darkness by W.M. Showcase. The library lays silent in the twilight of the night. The adventurers move forward slowly, their steps echoing on the marble floor. In the distance they hear the sound of pouring water. Over some heavily worn stairs, they reach a grand hall carried by pillars. As they advance, a fountain emerges from the darkness. Resembling the host's wife, a goddess of old, it sparks hope in the hearts of the adventurers. Floor marks lead to the fountain, to a cave-in revealing a hidden burial chamber. The adventurers dare not descend, as the scent of decay lays heavy around the hole in the ground. More stairs lead them deeper into a storage room filled with boxes, racks, and barrels. The smell of mold and rotten wood fills the cold air in this room. The adventurers hurry through an opening in the wall and enter a huge cave. A half-collapsed staircase leads down into the shadows. Water drips steadily somewhere below. And down in the lair, they hear something else, something vile, lurking in the shadows. So this is a really cool piece with a lot of different bits going for it. A library, a stone hall, a storeroom, a crypt, and a cavern all in one. Something like this could easily seem like 5 unrelated projects, but the way the stairs come through the rooms really ties it all together. This kind of omniscient cross-section view, which is really cool, kind of reminds me of the 2D side-scrolling games I grew up with in a really good way. Now, a large amount of the details are 3D printed, and there are some unfortunate layer lines that do hold this piece back a little bit. As a personal preference, I also wish they didn't include the unpainted models in so many of the photos. It doesn't really add anything and it's a bit distracting. Nonetheless, they've done each of these rooms with a lot of care and attention to detail, and it's really fun to look at all the details and sort of soak in the scene. When I look at this piece, I feel transported into a rich world of adventure, which is what great terrain is supposed to do. So really good work. Crashed Cargo Hauler by Art Dev. This is a great opportunity to be forced to follow through on a completed project. I feel like a finished entry will make me feel like a winner regardless. This is a papercraft shuttle from Gennett Models built with medium chipboard. It has bits made of zip ties, corrugated paper, screens, and bits from Snapship's toys. The engines are drink containers covered in craft foam. The pilots are cast with OU Martyr thermoplastic and Magic Sculpt and extra bits from 28mm kits. The hill is a spray insulation foam and cast rocks. The tree is a cool stick I found. So this is a gorgeous piece. It's grounded in realism, but with a fantastical element to it which is really fun. Now the rust all over it reminds me of old abandoned cars, which is a good thing that really sells that this thing has been forgotten here for ages. The rock is spectacular. The tree is great as well, and it adds some nice organic shapes for contrast with the blocky ship. The ground cover is understated and really nicely done. Now the details are what makes this piece fantastic. The pilot's dead in the cockpit, still strapped in, is such a perfect detail for a piece like this. I really like the choice to keep one in his spacesuit and have one exposed to the elements so you can see the bleached bones. Just really cool stuff. I also love the detail of the neatly stacked goods just outside. It tells a story of a survivor or looter who has started sifting through the wreckage. The description didn't mention any of that narrative. The piece told the story by itself, which is brilliant. Now the one criticism that I have is I'm not really sold necessarily on the position of the ship. It kind of feels placed on top of the rocks rather than crash landed there. I suppose it could have crashed nearby and rolled and bounced into this rock and then broken up, so that's fine. Cool. Overall, absolutely stellar work. The Old Burial Hill by Tamago. Behind the ruins of the derelict chapel lies the Old Burial Hill, a mossy crypt burying itself into the rock and old forgotten graves atop a small hill. It is seldom visited by anyone but Brother Thomas, though everybody knows that he is communing with the spirits. The spirits in his secret stash of firewater that he quietly enjoys while watching the sunset, but nobody has to know the whole story. This is a lovely piece. It's a really nice little rocky outcropping that's playable in the sense that you can put models going all the way up, which I always love to see. I love the varied foliage. It gives a fun, lush, cheerful look that kind of distracts from the fact it's a graveyard. Speaking of which, I'm not sure they could actually bury people on a rocky outcropping like this, so maybe these headstones were moved from somewhere else. I like the little baskets of flowers, the nice details like these little bottles. Very nice piece, very well done. So a lot of great entries in the open category. My vote is going to go to the crashed cargo hauler. It felt like it had the most realistic landscape, and the pilots in the cockpit was my favorite detail of the whole competition. Overall, I'm really impressed with the level that we have in this competition, but I want to make next time even bigger and attract even more talent to really make this clearly the premier competition in this community. I'm going to reach out to sponsors and put together an even bigger prize pool next time, but for this time there's going to be $250 worth of gift cards given away as prizes to the winners of both the raw and open category, and those results will be announced shortly over on Reddit. If you're interested in taking part in the next competition, make sure to head on over to the link in the description to sign up for the email list so you don't miss it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time on Eric's Hobby Workshop.